So I'm going to talk about color. Hopefully this will be informative, but I can't make any promises. I'm just going to tell you my experience. When I first started in 2003, I didn't have any previous art experience, so I just went to the library. I got some library books and some video cassettes, and most of them recommended that you start with a primary color palette. And so the advantages of that are you're working with just in some cases you could just start with blue, red, yellow, and titanium white. So you've got 4 colors that you're working with. It's and then which is simpler is better. Also, you're learning to mix the full range of colors, and then also graying down your colors or toning them down by using the complement, which is the opposite color on a color wheel. I'm assuming probably some of you already know this, but so what I went with was actually a split primary palette. So I had a warm and cool of each of the primaries, and plus titanium white. So most of these books and also videos recommended painting from life, which is also good. That's also a great advice. I'll break in here and just say that it's important to realize that sometimes painting from life for some people is not practical. When I first started, I was 38. My daughter was she was young. She was 2 years old. So I didn't have much time to actually get out and paint on location as much as I would have liked to. I did a lot of painting at night. And without natural light, which I don't do now at all. I find that really difficult, but that was all I had. And then I painted from, I believe at that time it was just from photographs, and then I would set up some still lifes. So I would try to paint from life, and so you could always paint from still lifes, but I was just not interested in still life at all. Got into it to be, I was more drawn towards landscapes. So anyway, so most of what was recommended is that you paint from life and go on location. So eventually I did buy a plein air setup. I got a French easel, so a portable easel. And then I went with a split primary palette, so the warm and cool of each of the primaries. And then I just went out and just experimented with those. And then I found that I needed a little more information regarding mixing colors. So then one of the books recommended making color charts, where you're sort of mixing all the colors on your palette in different mixtures, so you can see basically the idea is to see the full range of colors that you can actually get with your palette. And so that actually led me to eliminate, I just went down to 1 yellow, which was Cad Yellow Light, and then for my blue I had Ultramarine Blue, and I would use phthalo occasionally, but I ended up switching to Cerulean Hue, which is a mixture of phthalo and white, so it's a little easier to control. So I had the 2 blues, the 1 yellow, and then for red I was using mostly just Cad Red Light. And occasionally I'd use alizarin crimson, but not very often. So basically I was using, the 2 blues, but leaning mostly on the ultramarine, and then the 2 reds, but using mostly Cad Red Light, and then the 1 yellow, and then white. And for landscape painting, that was great. So again, I think it was a really good way to learn to mix color and also to gray colors down using primaries, as opposed to something like black or something like that, or like a burnt umber. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's important, I think, to realize too, there's no rules, and there are people that will I think experimentation is really a key thing. I mean, it's good to have a place to start, but I don't like the idea of, of people that are, any sort of rules or anything. I think experimentation and exploration is important. From my experience, I realized that most of the yellows that you get that are like sort of, student grade yellows or hues, instead of the cadmium colors, they're definitely a lot weaker. There may be uses for those colors, but if you're going to just have 1 yellow on your palette, I would recommend definitely having a cadmium color on there, because it's a lot denser pigment, it's stronger, and it's just frustrating to use a less dense yellow. So in any case, then I sort of expanded. I started toning my canvases when I was outside, and I would tone them with burnt sienna, which so that was on the palette. That ended up working its way into, you know, I started using it to mix colors with as well, and found that to be useful. And then I started experimenting with other colors. Some people gave me some paint tubes that they had left over from, you know, I had people donating paints to me, thinking, you know, I could use them, and some of them were useless, but I did end up using yellow ochre, was really helpful. And then also some of the other earth tones, which I didn't use at first, those became helpful for painting landscape paintings. So anyway, the key is, I think, is to, you know, a primary color palette's a great place to start. It's simple. You know, you learn the full range of mixing colors and how to gray them down using the complements. I think that's really important. But it's also important that there's no rules, and that if you just don't want to do that, and you see, you know, a bunch of beautiful colors in the art store that you want to use, then go for it, because it's up to you. So anyway, but that's been my experience. Like I said, I still use the primary color palette with a few exceptions here and there. I mix in some of the earth tones, and then also black too. I use black. Black makes some great greens. I mean, you know, one of the things you hear is like, oh, don't use black or whatever. You know, I think that was because of the Impressionists, and I was doing a lot of plein air painting at the time, and so most of these books would say you don't use black. And then I went to an Anders Zorn show where black is one of the, you know, uses black, red, yellow, and white, and no blue. And so I started experimenting. I had these tubes of Ivory Black, and I started experimenting with those, mixing with a little yellow, make some really great dark greens. So I still use that occasionally. So the key is experimentation, and but a primary color palette's a good place to start. So hopefully that's been somewhat informative, and not too ramble on and too crazy, but that's pretty much a good place to start. So hope that helps. If you like this video, thumbs up. You can subscribe for more videos, and if you want to see examples of my work, it'd be at Chamberlain Paintings on Instagram, and then chamberlainpaintings.com is my website. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.